TrueBlue software featuring Vantage, contracts to automatic dispatching. In this demo, we will create a contract on a piece of equipment and then create the work order through the automatic dispatching feature. There are two ways you can bill your customer for a contract and how to renew the contract. One, you can create the contract, then in the customer module, enter an invoice to invoice the customer for this contract. To renew the contract, you would edit the contract and extend the expiration date, then invoice the customer again. Or two, in the invoicing module, there is a place to invoice the customer for a contract, and when you do this, it creates a shell for the contract. You have to edit that contract to finish creating it. This second option, because it creates a new contract each time, is probably the better choice if you are tracking your actual cost to see if you are making a profit off the contract, as the first choice will just keep adding the cost to the same contract. To create a contract, click on the contract icon and it will display this next screen. Click on the Create New Contract icon. Select if it's a service contract or an extended warranty contract. Fill in the description field and then select your customer. Enter in an estimated cost and price. The price is the selling price. The actual cost will fill in once you start to maintain the contract. Next, select if it covers labor and/or material and if it's a residential or commercial contract. The specifications button will not be covered in this demo, but its purpose is to create one contract, a home warranty contract, to service the customer's multiple equipment they may have, and you want to service this equipment on different service dates. Maybe in the spring you want to service the AC unit, and in the fall you want to service the furnace and the generator. You could set contracts up to service many items like pools, hot tubs, sprinkler systems, fire alarms, monitoring system, ice coolers, garage doors, boilers. The list could go on. Now enter in a start and end date. When first creating the contract, the last service date is the start date. The next service date is calculated this way. It takes the last service date and looks to the maintenance cycle field and then calculates the next service date. This next service date is also known as the trigger date in the automatic dispatching. Enter in the terms and conditions of the contract here. Select the two general ledger accounts. Select a priority, service type, call type, and status. If you know what technician will be doing this contract, then you can select the technician here. Select a trouble code. Enter in a comment, and when the work order is generated from the contract, it will put these notes in the notes area of the work order. Before we can assign the equipment to the contract, you must save the contract first and exit out of it. Then open the contract back up and go to the Equipment tab as shown next. Next, attach the piece of equipment this contract is going to cover. Now save the contract and exit out of the contract. Now we are ready to generate a work order to service this piece of equipment that is on the contract. Go to File and then click on Automatic Dispatching and it will bring you to this next screen. Remember earlier I said the next service date would also be the trigger date for the automatic dispatching. You would enter in that next service date here in the trigger date field. So at the end of the month, you could put the next month's ending date in the trigger date field and it will show you all the contracts that are due for the next month. Now we have entered in a trigger date and clicked on the equipment button. It now shows us that contract is due. Now click on the Generate Dispatches button and it will display this message. It is telling you the work order number it is about to generate. Click on OK if you wish to generate a work order. Now open up the dispatch grid and it will display this next screen. Now it shows that work order under the technician we selected when creating the contract. Now double click on the work order. Now it shows all the codes that you selected when creating the contract. It also shows that comment you entered in the contract here in the notes area. It also has that contract and equipment listed on the work order. Now let's close out of the work order and go back to the dispatch grid and timestamp this work order that it is done. The work orders assigned to the technicians will appear on the right side of the dispatch grid under their column name. They will sort by date, then sort by the priority code that you gave the work order. As the technicians do each work order, you can timestamp them as dispatched, arrived, started, and complete. This will be your labor time that you invoice the customer for. To access these different timestamps, first left-click on the work order, then right-click and it will display this next screen. Select the Timestamps option and it will display this next screen. It will list the work order number and assignment number in the title bar of the screen. The dispatch timestamp. After using this timestamp, it will show a traffic light to show the tech is on their way to this call. The arrived and started stamps. After using either one, it will show a blue check mark to show the tech has arrived. The complete work order stamp. After using this timestamp, it will remove the work order from the dispatch grid. Now that work order has been done and timestamped, it is now time to invoice that work order in the invoicing module as shown next. The reason for invoicing the work order attached to the contract is to create the history and post cost against the contract. Click on the New button. Next, select the transaction date. Now type in that work order number in this field and press the Enter key on the keyboard. Notice how it pulled the customer, technician, contract number, and equipment from the work order. Now we will invoice for the labor and record just the cost as the labor was included in the selling price of the contract. Click on the Add Extra button and it will display this next screen. This is where you can add in the different labor rates you may offer. Notice to the right of the Cancel button, it is a gray area. After highlighting a labor, the text on dispatch field appears. Click on the drop-down arrow and it will display the texts that are on this work order. After selecting the tech, the quantity field will then pull in the hours from the timestamping as shown next. It pulled in the timestamp hours. We also have a cost entered in, which is what you pay the technician per hour. This pulls in automatically from payroll. The price field, the selling price, will be left at 0 as labor was included in the contract. Now click on OK and it will bring you back to the invoice screen. The Job Description tab. The upper section is used for a short comment and is viewed in the Customer module when looking at this invoice as a transaction. The lower section will print on the invoice for the customer to see what was performed and will also appear in the Notes button in the service history. The Spell Check button works with the lower section. Because the Create Service History is checked off, it will automatically create service history for you once the invoice has been committed. If you have the Show Postings checked off, it will give you a breakdown of all the general ledger accounts it is going to post you once you commit the invoice. You have to print and or preview the invoice before the Commit button is active. So click on the Print button and it will display this next screen. This screen gives you a few options of how you wish to print the invoice or if you wish to email the invoice to the customer and not print. We will email the invoice. Now click on the Commit button and it will display this next screen. Because we are invoicing a work order, it will ask you to close it out if the dispatcher did not close it in the Service Dispatch module. Because we have it checked off to show the posting screen, it will show you the general ledger accounts that it will post you. Although there is nothing to post because we did not charge the customer, and the labor expense will hit the general ledger when you pay the tech for these hours. After clicking Close to the posting screen, it will then give you this message that the invoice has been committed. Click on OK. Now let's check some of the other areas that posted data as well due to invoicing this work order that is against the contract. In the customer module, when you look up that customer, you can see the invoice posted to the customer's record. You can also see the small comment from the job description tab from the invoicing module. You can also see that the invoice was emailed to the customer. Now if you click on the equipment history icon, it will display this next screen. This customer tab will list all of the customers that have equipment on file. It does not list all of the customers in your database, just customers who have equipment on file. Now highlight that customer you just did the contract work for and click on the Equipment tab. Now highlight that equipment that was just serviced on the contract and click on the Work Order tab. Now it will show that work order number that was generated from the automatic dispatching. Now that we have invoiced that work order attached to this contract, it posted the actual cost of that invoice here in the contract. Now click on this icon and it will display this next screen. This will give you the detail of the invoices that have been posted against the contract. Now go to the Dates tab, and it will now have that last service date of the service date you just did, and then it took that new last service date to calculate the next service date. To schedule a demo, please call the 800 number. Thank you for watching the demo. We hope to hear from you soon.